Hello, and welcome all back to Election Time News, your one-stop for political summations, poll reviews, non-partisan predictions, and reviews and compilations on other political forecasters. Today is Wednesday, October 9th, 2024, and so I'll be doing another electoral map prediction, but I will be doing it based on the margins, based on my new Google Sheet here that I have, with predicted margins, as well as the chance of victory, which I did yesterday. Now, I'll be releasing this sheet soon, potentially, so you can keep up to date on my predictions. And if you like content like this, make sure to subscribe to the channel. I'll be giving weekly updates on the presidential election predictions every Tuesday, leading all the way up to a video with my final prediction on the morning of Election Day, and I will also be live streaming Election Day starting at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time, as well as periodic updates on Senate races. I have a goal of 500 subscribers by Election Day, so do me a favor, help me get to that goal, and click on that bright red button. Let's make sure to share this with your friends that are also interested in politics to help spread the channel. Also, make sure to join the Discord, get alerts when I upload, take part in an election simulation to test your prediction skills and more. The link will be in the description. Now, moving on to the video. So, first off, a quick note here. Of course, we have a 5 scale here. I have 0 to 2% is tilt, 3 to 4% is lean, 5 to 6% is likely, 7 to 8% is certain, and 8 and plus 8 more is safe. Now, straight up 0.0% is pure toss-up, but I do not have any states in that category. So to start things off, we're going to be doing everything in alphabetical order, just because that's how I have this on this list. I might end up setting up filters for later, but I just made this sheet basically yesterday and today. So looking in here, we have the state of Alabama. It is a completely safe red state here. 26%. I expect it to be about 26% for Donald Trump, plus or minus 1%. Really not going to move much. Look, there's not really any polls. I'll be looking at some polls if there's any available in each and every state. But yeah, there's no polls here available at this time, unfortunately, so I will not be able to compare it to any polls. But looking at the past voting information for Alabama, it voted for Trump by 25.5 points, so actually this is just barely a slight increase, which would be expected considering that Harris is going to lose the popular vote a bit compared to how Biden did. So going in on our map here, it is going to go solid red. Now, looking here, Alaska, safe red, 10%. The best case scenario for Democrats, I'd say right now, is about 7.5%. Best for Trump is going to be 12 points. Looking here at the polls, I think because it is the slightest bit, quote unquote, yep, 9%, 5% here for the two at over 1,200. About 1,200 likely voters each, both done in the month of September, but so not all that long ago. So I have it about 10 points for the former president, which actually is technically the slightest decrease from 2020, but it is a generally left-trending state, so it wouldn't be too surprising, but then again, I wouldn't be surprised if it also went up a bit towards about 12 points. So it is going to go safe in the former president's column. Now, next up is going to be Arizona, tilt red. Now, best case scenario for Democrats is going to be probably about 3/4 of a point win, which would actually be even better than they did in 2020, where Biden won by about 1/3%. But currently, based on most of the polling in the state of Arizona, Donald Trump has held a relatively consistent lead for the past 3 to 4 weeks. And so, currently leading with about 1.5, with that 1.5 point average. Now, interestingly, this right-leaning pollster, done by fellow predictors On Point Politics and Red Eagle Politics, I did a video comparing them. Make sure to check that out later. So they actually did a poll. They're both right-leaning channels, and they actually have Harris up by 1, which is the first Harris leading poll in a week and a half. So the very interesting result here with this, not what I'd have expected. 735 likely voters. So this is actually a bit of a turnaround for the Harris campaign. Pretty good sign, actually. Because before this, actually, he had a 1.5 point lead, but now it's only 1.3% because of that new poll that came out. But I still do generally see it going to Trump by half a point or so, so it's actually going to still go tilt red on the map. Next up is going to be Arkansas, somewhere around 30%, not even close, safe red. Looking at the past result, 27 points, so that actually is quite a bit of a jump up, I think. But generally, it's going to be uneducated white voters in the state of Arkansas, so that's going to be the group of voters that had a slight move to Biden that's absolutely going to shift 100% back towards Trump, that are not going to vote for Kamala. So, looking again here, we have a completely solid red Arkansas. California is the exact opposite, 100% going to be safe blue, with probably about a 27% margin or so for Kamala Harris. Don't think there's going to be any polls here necessarily. Up plus 25. So exactly up by 25 in California. University of California with about 1,700 likely voters. Harris up by 22. Here, Harris up by 28. That's interesting. This one done after Biden dropped out had Biden up by 17 still, but Harris up by 25. So probably somewhere around 25, 27 points I have here. Colorado it has 12 points or so, which is going to be safe blue. In the most recent election, actually went by 13.5 points for Joe Biden. Before that, it only went for Clinton by 5. So I wouldn't be very surprised if it actually ended up shifting even further. I'd probably actually say best case scenario would probably be about 15 points or so. But the best for the Republicans is probably going to be about 8 to 9 points. Because if it does end up really shifting very hard to the right, then there's definitely a good chance that this is probably going to be one of the states that's going to shift back the most. Connecticut, absolutely safe blue. 20 points for Joe Biden in 2020. I'd say probably about 18 to probably closer to 19 points, actually. Looking at this again, so we're definitely safe blue. There's no question about that. Delaware, same thing, going to be safe blue for Kamala Harris. Moving in here, it's also going to be by 19 points for them. So looking at Colorado, Harris plus 10, Harris plus 11. So it's going to be looking closer to about 10 to 11. I would about 12. Connecticut is Harris plus 16. And then moving into Delaware, Harris plus 17, Harris plus 20. So all of these are looking very, very safe for the current vice president. D.C., no question, 90 points for Harris. It is not 86% for Biden. So actually that's a bit high. I don't know where I got 90 from. 90% is the total vote share. But it's gonna be like somewhere between 85 and 90 points for Kamala Harris. DC has never been anything close to even like on the radar. It's not. They haven't even updated it since Biden dropped out. But looking here, even Joe Biden. Oh, these are even. Oh, wow, we don't even have any polls. This is for 2020. So, yeah, no one's even done a poll in... Reminder that Joe Biden was ahead by 2.5 points in the polling average in Florida in 2020. Anyway, DC, safe red. Next up, Florida, likely red. Sorry, DC safe blue. Likely red, looking here, just under a 5-point margin. Trump plus 13, Trump plus 14 by these two. These are outlier polls, seeing how far out this is right here. But probably, I said 5 points on the nose, probably close, might be up to 6. Best case scenario for Harris is going to be closer to 3 points. But that is definitely still an increase from his 2020 margin and continually increasing from his 2016 margin, 1.2%, Then it went up to 3.4%, so about 5% would be about consistent with that rightward shift in the state of Florida that we've been seeing over the past 2 election cycles. Next up is going to be Georgia, which is going to be tilt red. Looking at the polling average in the state of Georgia, we have 1 point lead for Trump. It's actually starting to deteriorate. We have this large poll. 3,800 likely voters has it tied. Even tie, 47-47. But username plus 5 plus 6. It's been very close. Best case scenario for Hillary Clinton. For Kamala Harris is half a point for her, have it at half a point for Trump, and best case just under 2 points for Trump. But this actually might get even closer based, depending on if there's any other good polls for Kamala Harris, because this looks very promising. And looking in at, I wish we could get some. I'll look more for some specific county polls. I need to see some polls for the Atlanta metro area, get into some more specifics on those sorts of things. But looking at that so far, it does still seem to be tilting for the former president. Looking at Hawaii, safe blue. This safe for electoral votes for Kamala Harris, probably around 30%. That's right around where Joe Biden won the state by. So there's not really wrong state here. Doesn't have any. Interestingly, only had Biden plus 8 in April, but no recent polls anytime recent. But it's a very consistently Democratic state. I don't see any reason why it would drop, other than the fact that it did actually drop quite a bit from 2016 to 2020. Here it voted for Clinton by 32.2, and now it only voted for Biden by 30%. So that was a bit of a drop there, but still, I don't see any shot of it getting anywhere close. And almost converse to that is going to be the state of Idaho, going to be 30 points for Donald Trump, voted for it by 31 points. So absolutely going to be safe for the former president. And close to that is going to be the state of Illinois, safe for Kamala Harris, 16% there. We're going to go down to Illinois. Harris plus 18, Harris plus 16. This one, very recent, only 400 likely voters. Don't know why it's that small of a sample size in Illinois. But Harris plus 18 in that area. We have Biden plus 17. So it's actually an increase in his margins. But I'm actually going to have it go down a bit as of right now, just because of the loss of the urban cores. And there aren't really that many suburban regions in the state of Illinois necessarily. So I think that it's actually going to end up with a net loss for the Democrats, but still going to carry the state by a comfortable 16 points. Now, inverse to that is the next door state of Indiana, going to be safe red, 15 points for Donald Trump. Looking here, Indiana, Trump plus 14, Trump plus 16, Trump plus 17. So looking back, 19.2 in 2016, and then 16.1 in 2020. 15 is actually even lower than that, so that's going to be continuing in gaining in regions outside Indianapolis and in the Chicago metro area near South Bend, Indiana. Looking at these regions over here, gaining in Lake County, Porter County, St. Joseph County, Tippecanoe County, those sorts of regions, even though you're losing in very western Lake County, Indiana. So those regions are going to probably continue to see a leftward shift, but the state as a whole might end up staying put or could shift further to the right. Not necessarily sure as of yet. There's not much predicting to be done in these safe states because there's not much polling done, because the only thing that matters is who wins a state. And if it's safe, that doesn't matter. Now moving into finally another not safe state. We have the state of Iowa, which is going to go likely. I actually have it only 6 points for Trump right now, partially just because of this one poll, Trump plus 4. This is a huge flag for the Trump campaign, even though he won it by 8 points in 2020 and 9.4 in 2016. this eastern region is full of suburban-like areas, and if they continue to shift hard enough to the left, especially like what we've been seeing in the Nebraska 2nd Congressional District, a very suburban region, if we continue to see that go on in the eastern part of Iowa, out over in this area, then we're definitely going to continue seeing a leftward shift. Areas like Dallas County, Iowa, Black Hawk, Jefferson County, Iowa, we can end up seeing some of these areas flip or move further to the left. But if there's not any other polls, if there's no other polls out of the state of Iowa, I will probably shift it back. But if there's more, then I'll probably just continue to update it based off of how those are turning out. Next up is going to be the state of Kansas. 15 points for Donald Trump. That's a bit worse than the 14.6 point victory against Biden, but it's generally a pretty consistent state. No recent polls, because it's such a safe red state. Moving on, Kentucky and Louisiana. These are going to both go solidly Republican. 26 points and 19 points. I would be surprised if either of them have any polls whatsoever. Yep. That one is going to be... Alright, yep. So no polls with Harris in them, but 17 points and 26 points for these two states. Solidly red. And as things stand, Donald Trump's in the lead 118 to 100. Next up, we're going to be doing Maine all. I have this safe blue because of 8.5 point victory. 8 points, of course, being the cutoff for safe. Moving into Maine, we now have our statewide contest, Harris plus 9. And this one was actually, interestingly enough, Harris plus 17, but I don't believe that. This one's probably going to be more along the lines of what we're going to see on election night. Harris plus 9. The state as a whole voted for 9 points, by 9 points for Joe Biden, so I expect it's going to be very slim drop-off from that, but relatively close. It could go up to about 10 points or so, that I'd say, but I'd see closer to about 8.5 to 9 points on election night. Maine's 1st district, 22 points blue. This is 26, 23. I think it's going to drop a small amount, but it could go up to 24, 25 points, depending on how energized this region is. But it's definitely a safe electoral vote for the vice president. Maine's 2nd district is going to go likely red because of the 6% margin. Looking here, I voted 7.5 points for Trump in 2020 after voting 10 points for him in 2016. And looking here, Trump plus 7 in this poll. We're going to be ignoring this one because this was probably a very, very left-leaning poll. Harris plus 28 is relatively on par with Maine's 1st, but seeing Harris plus 5 makes no sense considering how hard of a shift to the left that would have to be in Maine's 2nd Congressional District, especially with the demographics as they are. One of the most rural and whitest regions in the northeastern sector over here. So, all right, looking back over here again, that's going to be likely. Maryland and Massachusetts are both going to be safe Democratic states. Oops, I did not mean to move Delaware. All right, Massachusetts, they both went for Biden by 33 points. So they are not even close. Maryland, I say, actually going to drop to about 32%. But Massachusetts is going to go up to 34 just because this is a very, has some central suburban regions, but the Boston region is probably not going to move that much. Meanwhile, Maryland has the D.C. metro area is expanding, and that's a civic. I think if we look at some polls here, where I think we do have 29.5 points for Harris, so that's going to be about 30, so moving up to 32. And then, of course, in the state of Massachusetts, we probably don't... 29 or so. So, actually, yeah, that's actually going to be a bit less. So, probably going to have it be closer to about 32 as well. I'd say probably closer to about, like, 33.5, actually, for the Democratic best-case scenario. I see more potential movement in Maryland based on how the D.C. metro area expands. and Boston is not growing as fast as the central area over here is in Maryland. So I would say that out of these two states, Maryland definitely has more room to grow. Looking in Michigan, we then have Tilt Democrat, the first Tilt Democrat state on here. Of course, looking at the polls, we do have a very slim Democratic lead, 1.8%. It is the most left-leaning out of the key Rust Belt trio of Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. 2.8% for Biden in 2020, and it went by only 0.22 for Trump in 2016, after Pennsylvania went by 0.72 and Wisconsin by 0.76. So it was the closest state in 2016. Yep, just barely, because New Hampshire is at 0.37. Closest state in 2016, and actually swung the hardest to the left out of these three in 2020. So I see probably it's going to go about 1.5 points for Kamala Harris. I actually don't see it going to the former president. Somewhere between just a few thousand votes and all the way up to probably about 3 points would actually be an slight improvement of Joe Biden's margins in the state. There's only a few states that I could potentially see that happening in, and Michigan and Wisconsin are actually two of them. So I will get to Wisconsin in a bit. All four of these states, I do believe there could be actually improvements from Biden's margins. But going back to this, we then have Minnesota, 7 points. That's going to be certain. I believe the first certain on the map here. Certain is going to be because of 7-point margin. Looking at Minnesota here, we have 6.1% lead for Kamala Harris. More recent ones being 8, 6, 6, and here we have 7, 7. Looking at the map here, it went by 7 points for Biden, and I think Tim Walz is actually just a relatively popular governor from the state again, so I think that may end up carrying the ticket to a bit over this 6.1% average. I wouldn't be very surprised if it went down to about as low as 5%, but I'm actually thinking probably closer to about 7.25 points or so, a bit over Trump's margin, so probably closer to 7.25 or so. Very, very slim increase over Joe Biden's margin in 2020. Next, of course, is moving on to Mississippi and Missouri are both going to be safe red, both of them by 16 points. Montana by 15, so these three are basically all in the same column now, interestingly enough. All three of them, Missouri by 15.4, Mississippi by 16.5, Montana by 16.5 points. I doubt any of them have any polling, but there's no polling in Mississippi. Missouri, Trump's only had by 12.2. Interestingly enough, there's a Trump plus 9 poll of 1,200 likely registered voters, which is very surprising actually. Only being plus 9, but this one plus 12. I think that is actually a slight underestimation, but I actually will bump this down a bit to 12.5 points for the Democratic best case scenario based on that, just because of if there's any shot that this is going to end up being like this. I mean, we then, of course, have Trump plus 17, Trump plus 16 polls from Emerson College, 1,000 registered voters. But I'm expecting it to be closer to about 15 points on election night. And at 16 points. Montana's going to be 15. Mississippi is going to be probably about 16 or so. It's going to be actually a slight bit better than Biden did just because of Harris's gains with the more central regions and not much of a loss with the western region, the black voters in that area. But I definitely wouldn't be surprised if it was a bit closer to 17 or maybe even like 18 points or so. As I'm going back over here, I'm going to make some changes because I did make this relatively quickly and I just plugged in some numbers by glancing at these. So Montana, 14 points, 14, 15, 16 points, somewhere in there. It would probably make the most sense. He's leading by 16 and that's 0.6 right now. So I'm probably actually going to bump that up a bit to probably about 16.5 points. And it's probably going to be closer to like 18 for their best case scenario. So, interestingly enough, now Montana is actually going to pull ahead to be basically tied entirely, 18 points for the best. Nebraska, looking here, statewide contest is going to be safe red, and so are the 1st and 3rd congressional districts. All 3 of these are going to be 50 points expected for the 3rd. It is the most Republican voting region in the entire nation. It voted for Donald Trump by 53.2%, so I just rounded to 50, 55, 45, so those aren't necessarily specific, but even if it were flat 50, that would actually be a decrease. But looking again now at Nebraska won 13%, that is also a decrease from 2020. I do believe that was based off of polls that I saw in the state of Nebraska. Here we have Trump plus 11. So having the entire state 18.5 was actually a bit of a compromise here. It was 19. So 18.5. Nebraska's 1st district. Looking here at these polls, there actually aren't any here that I could find easily enough. They're all of Nebraska's 2nd congressional district. So, looking again here, I basically had to go off of the old numbers. I guess I messed them up a bit. Nebraska's 1st is probably going to be closer to about 14.5 points again, and closer to about 16 points for the best case scenario. Nebraska's 2nd, though, is going to be 8 points. It's going to be certain for the Democrats. Basically looking here at the district, Harris plus 9,989, and it went for Biden by 6.6%. So this is definitely going to be an increase from 2020. It is still rapidly left trending. It's very suburban. Nevada, I have it tilt blue. I believe I have these flipped. Anywhere from probably about 2 points for the Republicans to about 1.5 points for the Democrats. I don't know what happened with my numbers there. Most likely very, very slim victory for the Democrats, 2.4%. No, actually, I believe I was supposed to have that 1.5%, and this was closer to about 3, which would be very surprising, but I definitely could see it happening. Right now, Harris is leading in the polls by about a point. Generally, they are underestimated by the polls. So anything close to about 1.5 points is probably about what I'd expect to see on election night. This is close to actually a lean margin. New Hampshire is going to go certain, 7.5 points for the vice president. The polls in New Hampshire have been consistently pretty good, right around 7 points. It went for Biden by 7.5, so right around 7.5 is probably about what I'd expect. Could go a bit less, with the poll being 7 on the nose, but right around 7.5% is probably about what we're going to be seeing on election night. Looking at New Jersey, then 15 points. This is going to be safe. I'm not going to elaborate further. It's starting to take a bit longer than I expected. New Mexico, 8.5 points. That's going to be safe, but just barely. I am going to go over this a bit. New Mexico is going to, currently the polling average is about 8.3, so I have it rounded up a little bit, 8 to 8.5. Voted for Biden by 11 points. I don't think it's going to drop that much in one single election cycle. Harris plus 8, this one, Harris plus 10, this one's more of an outlier, Harris plus 5. The thing that I don't like is these small sample sizes, so I'm trying to take more of just the demographic information and such, that more than the polls, just because of their small sample sizes and lack of information on there. New York, probably about 20 points, going to go safe blue. North Carolina, 0.5 point for Donald Trump. Best case scenario for the Democrats is actually going to be a flip, but as of right now, I don't see the momentum strong enough just yet for the Democrats. There's definitely a chance that things could change before Election Day, but 0.8, 0.9, 0.8 of a point for Donald Trump. It's been very, very, very close, but currently 0.8 of a point lead for Donald Trump. Again, the very, very small sample size, but has Harris in the lead. This one, Insider Advantage, 800 even, but 1,001 by the Washington Post just the last week or so. Trump plus 3, Trump plus 2. It voted for Trump against Biden by 1.3%, so I don't really see it. I think it actually is going to shift a bit more to the left again, but I could see it shifting a bit to the right. As of right now, I think it is still actually going to tilt red. North Dakota is safe red. There's no question about that one. Ohio is going to go safe 9 points or so. I don't think it's actually going to go up to about to double digits like some other people are saying, as it held steady between 2016 and 2020, which means that it shifted about 3 points. But polling, I think, as of right now, generally has 8.7%, so I don't think it's actually going to bridge the gap over to double-digit points. At best, it's probably going to just barely be below this. Best case scenario could probably be closer to about 6 points or so. Oklahoma, solid red, one of the most Republican states in the entire nation. Oregon, safe blue, probably around 16.5 points on election night. Now, Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is the state this election season. Millions of dollars poured into it. Harris with a very narrow lead of 0.8 of a point. This is a very good poll for Kamala Harris. 5,000 registered voters, likely voters, 5,000 likely voters with Harris +1. Now, that Harris +1 isn't very good, but the fact that it's still that with a relatively low margin of error is very good for her. So, 0.8 of a point lead here. It went to Biden by 1.2%. I say probably closer to about half a point. It could definitely flip red on election night, but best case scenario, it could actually increase. So again, this is another one of the states where I think there's possible for Harris to actually increase upon Biden's margins in 2020. It's going to go tilt blue. Rhode Island, safe red. It is in the blue wall up in New England. South Carolina, safe red, probably about 11.5 points. It's actually quite a bit less than some previous seasons. South Dakota, very, very red state. Tennessee, same thing in this mega red wall over here now, with Illinois sticking out like a sore thumb. Texas is going to go certain 7 points or so. Looking at the polls here in the state of Texas, we have 6.2% lead for Donald Trump, 5 points here on these more recent ones, and it went 5.6 points for Donald Trump against Biden, so this is definitely going to be an increase. There's a chance that she might move it down a little bit, but I really don't see it happening. So probably closer to 7, maybe up to 8 points, but probably closer to 7, maybe 6.5 or so, but that is still going to be a certain margin. Utah, red, very red for a long time. Vermont, the bluest state in the nation, definitely going to go into Kamala Harris's column. Virginia, certain, 7.5 points. There were some concerning polls for the Democrats out of the state earlier. Yeah, see right there, I accidentally clicked on it, but Harris +41 in Vermont. 7.7 polling average right now, +11 out of these two, 8 and 32 adults, Harris +6, but Harris +11, Harris +11, 7.7 margin, and this is actually even lower than that. So 7.5, that's still certain. So, and then Washington, part of the Pacific Blue Wall, and then to finish things off here, she is just 4 electoral votes shy, so she actually can win. If somehow we were in a world where she could win West Virginia, she would just need to win West Virginia. But then, of course, we know West Virginia, of course, will go red. 38% for Donald Trump, not even close. It used to be somewhat close, even as recent as 2008. It only went to McCain by 13 points, but it has flown so heavily far to the right. It voted for Donald Trump by 39% in 2020. So it has not even had a blue county since 2008, even in the college towns. So looking here, 38 points for Donald Trump. It is going to go safe. Now, Wisconsin basically mirrors Pennsylvania, except a bit less blue, actually. 1/4 of a point for Kamala Harris, but it could go up to about 3/4 of a point red on election night, up to about 1.5 points. Now, this would be a large improvement from Biden's margin. I'm actually going to say probably about 1.25 points, but the polling in the state of Wisconsin has been looking very good, 1.5 points up. So that's where I'm getting my 1.25 numbers from, more or less. Now, this one, 1,000 and a bit right-leaning, that's going to be close to a tie or so. But looking here again, going to be 1/4 of a point for Kamala Harris giving her 276 electoral votes. And then, of course, the state of Wyoming is the reddest state in the entire country. It is going to go 44 points for Donald Trump. So there's our finished map for the 2024 presidential election based on my prediction sheet that I have made now. I'm going to probably make references to this in future videos for my chances and predicted margins. Now, thank you all so much for watching. Make sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss my election night live stream. And I hope you all have a fabulous rest of your day.